Okay, it looks like we're live. Hi, Engee.
Hi, Anna.
Thank you so much for joining me today. If anybody else has time to join and watch with us, we welcome you. But certainly, this broadcast will continue to be here. So we love it if you give us either a hashtag live or a hashtag replay if you come back and watch this. This pleases the Facebook gods, and if you can give us lots of hearts too, if you're liking this, it just boosts engagement in Facebook's algorithm so that more people can see what we have to say here today about self-doubt. So I am going to let my lovely friend Dr. Engee tell you exactly how to say her name because I'm not sure how to say your last name, Engee, but Engee is also a fellow coach and a fellow physician. And so, we thought we'd get together and chat a little bit about our own journeys with self-doubt and how we help our clients to grow through times when they're experiencing self-doubt. And so in my Facebook group, which is called Anti-Fragile Female Physicians, Loving the Lives We Work Hard For, we just finished a self-doubt challenge. And just having interacted with those women and seeing how they grew through even just starting to scratch the surface in a few days of this stuff, it made me realize how very important this is. And so I asked Engee if she wanted to talk about this, and she was all in and ready to go. So we're here, and that's what we're going to do for you guys today. So Engee is a health and wellness coach for high achievers. And I'm going to ask her a few questions about how she approaches self-doubt. But first, maybe I'll let you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, Engee.
Sure. You asked about how to pronounce my last name, and I was thinking it's easier than you think. So I always tell my patients it's eBay, like the website eBay.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I know the spelling throws people off, but that's the easiest way to remember it.
I'll never forget it now. That's awesome.
So I'm an internist. I'm actually an academic hospitalist with the Baylor College of Medicine here in Houston, and I'm also a life and health coach. Yes, I have been I've enjoyed working with high achievers, helping them to, create the life that they want and, have fun living that life. So, Anna, I'm so glad you chose this topic because it's one of those things that I struggled with a lot until I got into coaching, and realized it was meant to be just another step that could get me to the next level. So I'm glad we're talking about it. So
I love it. I love it. Yes, we were just talking before we jumped on live here about self-doubt as being part of the growth journey. And so I'm not going to jump too far ahead into that because I loved what you were saying, Engee. So I look forward to chatting more about that. Okay, so before we jump into the things we were going to chat about, I just wanted to mention if there's anybody who's a female physician who's on here with us and who's not yet on my email list, I'm very soon going to be starting to open up enrollment for the next round of my coaching program. So you can go to antifragilefemalemd.com. And if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you can sign up for the email list. Don't worry, I do not spam you. Like, literally, I barely have time to email the list ever, but I will be emailing the link to enroll and the link to book a consultation if you want to know more about my coaching program. And I'm offering a free ebook on there right now, which is called How to Be the Heroine of Your Story in 6 Simple Steps. So if you like what Engee and I are talking about here today, you can jump on there and you can get access to that and continue to do more of a deep dive for yourself. And you can stay up to date on coaching stuff at the Anti-Fragile Female MD. So Engee, tell me what your thoughts are about why self-doubt is such a significant demon for us to tackle.
So, because the way I think about it is that self-doubt, most times we don't actually recognize that feeling as self-doubt. We really believe it as a story. That is like a story we've told ourselves, and it's true, right? So you don't see it as what it is, that just self-doubt. You just assume that's who you are, this is all you're all about, and it's part of you. So it's really sad that that's the way it is, but of course that's because we never got to be taught how to identify our emotions and feel our emotions. Growing up, as becoming adults, we just take it as part of normal. And so yeah, it's definitely something that is worth identifying and growing from it.
Totally. I think it's this, like, just because we thought it doesn't mean we have to believe it, right? And I think starting to scratch the surface of like what's happening in our brains is not like dogma or truth, or it's this idea that we all have this part of our brain that creates doubt, and it's actually a normal part of a human life. And I think about it like this is our primitive brain trying to protect us and keep us safe, but it's a bit misguided. It's like when we evolved as human beings, our primitive brain didn't catch up and realize that like all these things we fear are not actual dangers to us. They're thought errors, right? They're thought errors that if we fail, if we make a mistake, if we don't succeed at a goal the first time we set it, that like some terrible, awful thing is going to happen to us, and they keep us playing in this safe cave, yet they also hold us back from so much of what we want to accomplish in our life.
Absolutely, that's what it is. Yeah, they're thought errors.
Totally, right? And so I'm curious, in your clients or in yourself, in your journey, I mean, starting businesses, becoming doctors, like these are not easy things that we've done. And so I can certainly give lots of examples where I've had doubt come up for me. But I'm curious for you, like what have you noticed for yourself or your clients in terms of when you're struggling with self-doubt, what kinds of thoughts are coming up for you or for others?
So, I think I kind of mentioned this before we came online, that I identified this doubt to be more intense once I'm going through a growth phase. I mean, we're always growing, but it's like once I'm about to make that leap, like you said, when I became an attending, and this is like what 14 16 years out of residency, I still feel like medical school, I still feel like I struggle with it. And then of course, once I decided I was going to be a coach and start a business, it all came up. So the thoughts that usually how they present itself is things like, okay, I'm going to talk from the medicine aspect. The most common one is I don't know this enough. Like, I'm not an expert in this, or it's crazy. Even something I've done over and over, sometimes I almost feel like I might kill this person. I may make this mistakes. You're not good enough to take care of a human being, So those are the kind of thoughts. Now, from the coaching side, it's almost always like, it's like when I started coaching, I felt like I wanted to do it all. I wanted to know it. And so I just kept getting this wall of, you don't know enough. You're not ready. There's so much you don't know. You can't help this person. You're not good enough to help this person. Yes.
Totally. And, I think we think sometimes too, like, if I'm struggling with something, then like I'm not good enough to be helping somebody else with something, right? If I have my own struggles, like that comes up for me all the time, right? That insecurity around, oh my gosh, if I'm still dealing with this in my life, how can I help somebody else deal with this in theirs? When in fact, often that's easier than dealing with our own stuff, right? That's why we hire coaches.
It's like, one good example I have was when I decided to start health coaching. I was like, I'm still working this journey. Like, I'm not that, for me, I felt like I'm not a good example of someone that should be telling somebody what to do to gain their health back, even though I knew all the tools, because I felt like it was still a journey I was working in. So I kept having the doubts. And because of that, obviously affected the way I showed up, because I didn't want to be called out.
Yeah, totally. I just want to mention there's lots of lovely people here giving you shout outs, Engee. You've got lots of supporters in the comments. But to everybody who's watching, thank you so much for being here. We love your hearts. We love your #lives. But also, if you have any questions, feel free. For some reason today, I can actually see who's commenting, which I normally can't. So I don't know if StreamYard has had an upgrade or something, but please do fire away if you have questions or comments. We love to see them as we're doing this. So some of the things that I always think of is when I think of self-doubt, and Engee, I'm sure you can probably relate, or you've probably seen this with people that you've coached, but this is what I think of. Like, it's like our brain decides that we can't accomplish something because we have some kind of like special snowflake syndrome, or there's something about us that means that like oh, but I have this thing about me that's holding me back, or, oh, I don't have the, the right skill set, or, oh, I haven't achieved this thing yet in my life, or, oh, I don't have a partner who's a stay-at-home spouse, or, oh, I have kids, or there's always a reason, right? Why we think we're lacking something that we need to have to be able to accomplish. Thanks, Patricia. Why we need something to be able to accomplish this goal. And so I like to think of this as like a special snowflake syndrome or a unicorn syndrome or something, because our brain is very tricky, right? Like it really gets in there and we believe these things are true, yet they're never true, right? They're just thoughts that happen to be passing through our mind, and they're often grounded in a fear of failure or this desire to protect ourselves, but they come from this perfectionism, this unrealistic expectations, this feeling that we need to do it all. Ellie says, are you busting my special snowflake bubble? But really, when we realize this and we draw attention to this in our mind, it is like suddenly we can see how silly it is that we think these things about ourselves and how much they keep us playing in this safe cave. So that brings me to my next question for you, Engee. So what do we miss out on if we indulge our self-doubt? What's the problem with this self-doubt?
Oh, man. So, a quick summary before I go on and explain is that we just play small. We constantly play small, right? We never get to our full potential because it means we're always operating from a place of doubt. That means we're holding ourselves back. And it just shows because these are feelings that end up driving that action that will give us the result that we want. And so the results will always be less than what we really can get because we're coming from a negative emotion is really what it is. It is.
Yeah, that's totally it, right? It's like when we don't question this self-doubt, when we just say, I can't do it because I have doubt, right? When we let that be the emotion that drives our actions and creates our results, we miss out on all of our potential growth, all of the things we can achieve in our life, all the goals we could see come to fruition. It's part of a human life to have the self-doubt, but when we believe we're stuck in it and we can't move forward and we can't change, that's when we miss out on all of this stuff. It's not because we have the doubt, but it's because we don't know what to do with it when it flares up. So what do you do to overcome self-doubt? How do you approach it?
So, and this is something that came to me after I actually started coaching. Honestly, before now, I feel like I've just been swimming in this doubt and I just let things ride out. And clearly, the results were, sometimes I used to,
right.
but now I call it what it is. I identify it as a feeling, right? It's just an uncomfortable, self-doubt is just an uncomfortable feeling. So I acknowledge it. I hate to say this, but I welcome it. Like I let it have a seat. Like this is who you are, self-doubt, right? And it's just a feeling. And so when I do that, then I start asking myself why. Like why do I feel this doubt? What is it that is going on in my head? What is my brain thinking? What is it trying to quote unquote protect me from? And when I able to identify those thoughts, I'm able to self-coach, do the coaching that is involved. I start doubting those doubts. I always like to come from a place of curiosity, like, maybe there's a chance that this isn't, I start doubting it. And once I do, and it really depends. Sometimes I also think about the results I'm trying to accomplish, right? And I've told myself that this doubt it's a factor that's going to be there anytime I'm thinking about growing, like anytime something big is about to happen. And so because I know that big thing is what I want as my result, like I said, I welcome that doubt and give it its position and just use it as a leap forward. So I go through the thought process, the thought download, and I go ahead and allow my coach myself, inner coach, to do the work that is now used to doing. Yes.
I love that. By the way, I will do lives with you anytime because you bring a great support team with you.
Oh, really? I can't see any comments. Hi, guys. I can't see any comments, but that's okay. Thank you for all the love.
No, but this is so awesome, right? You mentioned this idea of doubting your doubts. I just love this. It's like we give equal airtime to both sides of the story. The one where we have the fears because we need to feel them. It's so funny. Like I think in life, we don't actually do enough of this like fear diving or fear exploration. I think we like sense our brain, our spidey senses go off that we're afraid of something, and then we're just like, oh, just like push that away and shove it in the closet and shut the door and don't pay attention to it. But yet when we actually dive into our fears and we start to go down this avenue and we're like, and then what? And then what? And then what? And we take it all the way to the worst case scenario, we'll be amazed at the nonsense our brain will come up with, right? And then we're like, well, what's the actual probability of this happening in my life? Like 1 in 1,000, 1 in 100,000, right? But what am I missing out on if I don't try this? Like what would I just decide I'm never going to have if I just fail in advance by never pursuing this goal, right? It's such a, I think it's so important to balance, to give equal airtime to the alternative of, yes, I have doubt around my ability to accomplish this. But if I never accomplish this, what am I missing out on in my life? Like what is never going to happen because I was too afraid to feel those feelings, right? I was too afraid to experience the way it would feel like to, not succeed or to be rejected or to have to try to do this a different way or to have the first time I do something, me not know how to do this, right? Or me realize there's room for me to improve it, to not be perfect the first time I do it. When we're children, we're not born with this, right? When you're a child, you don't know how to do something, well, you keep on trying until you figure out how to do it, right? I don't know how old your youngest is, but I live with a 2-year-old. And so I see her day in and day in, well, right? Because you've seen them, right? And day in and day out. And I bet you it's still probably true for your 8-year-old. When they're figuring out how to do something, they just try again until they figure it out. But somewhere along the way, when we become adults, we start to think like, everybody needs to think I have my shit together, right? Like if I don't come across like I'm perfect and I know how to do everything, then people are going to judge me, and I'm going to have to try to control everybody's thoughts and everybody else's feelings so that they're not judging me. And it just turns into this giant mess if we have to be perfect all the time. But what if we don't? Like, what if the road to success, just like it's always been since we were babes, is paved with falling flat on our face and getting back up stronger every single time so that we learn along the way? I think it's a great way to really question our doubt, is to just ask ourselves that question, like, what if this has always been the way it was supposed to be? Like, what if nothing has gone wrong because I doubt myself? And what if my worst case scenario comes true and I don't succeed, right? Then yeah, absolutely. We get so embarrassed to even try. And yes, this holds us back so much from so much in our life. So Engee, I want to know, what do you do to take action despite of your self-doubt? Like, you've identified that self-doubt for you is kind of this spidey sense, that's my terminology, not Engee's, where you're like, okay, I know I'm on the cusp of growing, but if you dove into the self-doubt and you went down that road, it might take over and force you back into the safe cave. But for you to take action, keep on growing despite it, what do you do? How do you overcome that?
So I have this mastermind group, and I remember I used to say, I think I read it somewhere, it's like something like, instead of saying what if, I switch it and say even if. So for me, it means even if I'm going to fail, I'm still going to take action. And one of my most favorite mantra is do it afraid, and that's okay. So most times when I'm doubting, the truth is, like I said, I go ahead and do a thought download. And most times I find out that what it is I'm scared of something, right? It's the fear of embarrassment, fear of failure, fear of whatever, fear of something. And, you know, because of how the society views failure and fear, we tend to have this negative thing to it as well. Nobody wants to fail. Um, I did a Facebook Live about this. For me, I've learned to identify failure as a process. It's going to be success is going to be a side effect of failure. And like you said, when we have babies, they keep trying things out until they get it, right? But as adults, we kind of shy away. So now, when I've identified that fear, I just really, like I said, acknowledge it for what it is, just another uncomfortable vibration on my body. Nothing is gonna Failure wouldn't kill me. Failure, like, I really tell myself these things. You are more than enough. I go through these things almost on a day. Some of these affirmations, that I do tell myself, and I just keep taking the steps. I figure out what result I want, and I know that for me to get that result, this is the action that I have to take. So I did some of the actions depending on what it is that I need to take. And from changing my thoughts around that failure, how I approach that situation, I tend to, when I tell myself, even if all I'm doing is switching that thought around to one that will give me a more empowering emotion, a more positive one, even if it's just an emotion out of curiosity, because what it does is it gives me an action that will give me a better result than coming from self-doubt by knowing it. So that's really what I do. I get the thought down, identify what it is, start changing that thought, pick a thought that feels true, but yet, will be closer to getting me the result that I want, and just push through that way.
Yeah, totally. I love that. I mean, I ask myself, and I ask my clients this question all the time, like, is this thought serving? Like, is it helping to get us? And if it's not, then why am I choosing to believe this right now? And you're so right that for anybody here who doesn't know what Engee means when she's talking about a thought download, this is terminology that we're using when we're just talking about writing out everything that's coming up for us in our brain. We're not judging our thoughts. We're not, editing them. We're just dumping everything that comes out in our mind. And then we go back. We give ourselves a few minutes, and then we go back. And with a curious mind, we evaluate, like, these types of questions that Engee and I are asking, right? What is this serving me? How is this holding me back? Because when we start to do that, we can really see, like, sometimes what we're believing is so silly and there's no evidence for it and there's no reason to believe it, but yet it's just in there. And so when we can get it all out on paper, there's something, I'm going to use the word therapeutic, but I just mean that in a way of, like, it just allows you to take the noise out of your brain and to start to use your brain, just like Engee says, with curiosity, to shift it from this place of, like, I'm in doubt and I don't think this can ever happen, to this place where I'm going to take some action, even if it's just the tiniest baby step to moving towards the thing. And I'm creating a space where I can create a safe space for myself to not need to know how to do everything perfectly, and not, hit a home run the very first time I step up to the plate, to use some sports terminology for anybody that plays sports. But there's some really great stuff coming up in the chat here, guys. I love it. Oh, do it afraid. That is so good. I love it. And yes, somebody wrote down what Engee had said there with the even if. It's so, so good. And this is why adulthood is a scam. I love it. But guess what? This all exists. The scam of adulthood exists in our thoughts. So we can totally decide to rewrite the script in our brain.
Yes.
And failure is feedback. Yes. And don't attach your self-worth to your results. Oh my gosh, Jamie, that is so good. I love that. I love that. Okay. So, I want to share just briefly a few tools that I use with my clients in terms of how we can take action despite our self-doubt. So what I like to have people do is go on an exercise where they think about our human brain as two it's almost like there's two different people in there. Okay, so for anybody who's a parent, you're going to get this, but even if you're not a parent, I guarantee you've seen a toddler having a tantrum somewhere in a public place. And I want you to think about your lower brain, your primitive brain, like the toddler who's laying on the ground, smashing their fists into the ground because the sky is not yellow. Okay, you know, something ridiculous, right? It's always something totally ridiculous that they, you know, you gave them a spoon instead of, you gave them the red spoon instead of the purple spoon that they wanted, right? It's like something that we're like, we're the parents standing there watching the toddler having the tantrum. This is our prefrontal cortex, our most executive functioning brain, who's watching the toddler having the tantrum, and it's just like, this is insane. Like, what is going on here, right? And they're at war with one another. It's a battle of wills. And so I think about this, like, if I get into my car, and my car is my metaphorical, I'm driving my car is my metaphor for living my life, okay? If I put that tantruming toddler in the front seat next to me, they're going to be throwing a fit and hitting and punching me and pulling the steering wheel and driving me all over the place. But if I take the same screaming toddler and I buckle them into the back seat where they're nice and safe and they can still scream, they can still tantrum, they can still be so angry that I gave them the wrong color spoon, but I am going to be able to drive my car and get from point A to point B. That's how I think of what we can do with self-doubt. We can allow it to be there. And like Engee mentions, in some ways, it can even be this like ding, 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 ding bell that we're actually growing in our life, but we can buckle it into the back seat and not let it take over and drive everything that we do. So when we're intentional with the way we're thinking, then it means that we're not letting self-doubt take over and run everything for us and get a hold of the steering wheel and drive us off the road. Makes sense? So a couple of other things. I love this idea of giving equal airtime, and we sort of talked about this when we talked about doubting our doubts, but giving equal airtime to our inner coach as we give to our inner critic. So you wonderful ladies who are here tagging along with us this afternoon, and to anybody else who comes along and watches this after the fact, I want you really to think about that little teeny tiny voice inside of you, like the one that keeps on cheering, that believes that you can pick yourself back up and keep going, and the one that just says, but what if? But what if? Or I haven't done that yet. Or there's this part of me that knows. We so often don't listen to that voice, but we listen to the inner critic all the time. The inner critic just runs wild, right? We think the inner critic is the only one who knows anything about anything, right? And here's the thing, there's actually some scientific research that shows that we need to hear from that inner coach 16 times more than we need to hear from our inner critic in order to believe what the inner coach is telling us. So ladies, it serves you to start to build up your inner coach, to give her a voice in your mind, to ask yourself what she's thinking about. Because if you do this, what happens is that the more you engage this part of yourself that really no longer totally believes these negative beliefs that we've developed throughout our life experience and because of the way we were raised about ourselves, if we start to spend some time getting to know that inner coach, we can actually start to rewrite this information that our brain gives us automatically. And that's the important part of this. But if we don't engage in this activity and we don't do this, then it will never happen, because that inner coach is so loud that what happens is that she just drowns out all of the inner, did I say that wrong? Inner critic.
Yeah, inner critic.
She drowns out the inner coach. And we know the inner coach needs to be bigger and badder and louder in order to drown out the inner critic. What do you think about that, Engee?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to say something about that. So, most times when we are doubting, we have this self-doubt show up, we tend to want something external to validate us. And I'll give an example. Like me, I remember when I wanted to, when I wanted to start teaching medical students, I felt like every time I feel like I needed to know more. Like when I was doubting myself, I felt like if I read some more, if I watch another podcast, if I read another book, and so we keep chasing these external things. But the honest truth is, that doubt can really only be overcome by that inner coach. Like you have to listen to that voice, because no amount, as long as that critic is still louder, no amount of reading, um, actually, the more you chase those things, the more you doubt. It's almost like the more you know, the more you don't know kind of situation. So it's all boils down to letting that other voice, that inner coach, inner calm peace to speak to you and allow you, quieten that critic. And that's really, so it's all going to be internal and not anything external that can do it for you.
Totally. I couldn't agree more. And I think it translates into the difference between taking passive action, which is consumption of information, right? It's reading all the self-help books, whatever it is, listening to all the podcasts.
Yeah.
We love being here and supporting you guys, but no matter how many of our lives you watch, until you start to do the work of letting your inner coach spread her wings and start to have a voice, the real transformation, the real massive action that translates into result changes in your life isn't going to start to happen. And so, so good. I love that you said that. That's awesome. Okay, so I have one more little hack actually, I'm going to add one more thing to that as we're talking about this concept of taking massive action is this. Ask yourself this: what would I be prepared to do 100 times, 1,000 times in order to achieve the result, the goal that I want to achieve? Because these are the kinds of things we want our brain to be open to. Is, do I want this bad enough? So many times we try something twice, 3 times, and we think, this is never going to happen for me. But yet, if you were prepared, I love this. So many good comments, you guys. The feed on this live is awesome. Thank you so much. It's making my afternoon. But okay, one more thing. I wanted to ask Engee if she was willing and open to playing with me with one more exercise that I really like to use with my clients. Are you willing,
sure.
Engee?
Yes, awesome. Yes.
Okay.
I'm sure someone is going to learn from it. So yes.
That's always the reason why we do this, right? Okay, so let's chat about the concept of the future self. So I love sharing this fun with you guys too. So who is our future self? She is us. So listen, whenever we think about who we are, I think it's important to preface this with this. When we think about who we are, we often look to our past and define ourselves based on our accomplishment. I'm a physician, I'm a coach, I'm a mom, all things I've done before. I bet you if we asked Engee who she was, she would define herself based on the very same things, right? But all of the things we've done in our past, just as much as all of the things we're going to do in our future, all of those things exist in our imagination, you guys. 100%. The only thing we have right now is Engee and I, woman to woman, sitting here having a chat in this moment. Like, this is it. This is life. The rest of it is in our imagination. Isn't that crazy to think about? So what we can do with this amazing imagination of ours is we can start to envision the future version of ourselves who has already accomplished what we want to accomplish when we set a goal for ourselves. And she is the one who's overcome the self-doubt because she has navigated the road. I like to think of it like this: is I'm an obstacle course racer. So this is always the picture I have in my mind. The finish line of the race is never at the top of the mountain, but imagine it was, okay? And so you're going up the mountain, you're running your way up the mountain and you hit an obstacle along the way, right? And every time we hit an obstacle, we have to figure out how to overcome the obstacle to get to our final destination. Our future self is standing at the top of the mountain. She's looking down and she knows exactly how to get around every single one of the obstacles. And she just gives us advice and guides us. So one of the things I had the challengers in my Facebook group doing was writing letters to themselves from their future self to guide themselves through whatever it was that they wanted to overcome or they have self-doubt. So tell me just about one area in your life that you can think of right now that you have some doubt on, Engee.
So I would say it's the coaching world, clearly, yes. And you know, being a foreign trained, moved over here, there's always been this doubt like you can't fit in here. And then as a physician, I always told myself that is really all I can do, be a physician. I can't coach. And but I know that that's not true right now. I do know that. So my future self will clearly look back and tell me right now that you fit in, you are more than enough, you are made for this. And you know, this is what your life dream and passion and place is, to guide a lot of women that need to be woken up and own their truth and learn to be able to self coach themselves and create the life that they truly deserve. And you did it, and I know I will. So yeah, that's what it's going to tell me.
Amazing. And so what kinds of things, like when you think about your journey in this road of growing a business, where does some of the doubt start to come in for you? What are the obstacles right now?
So like not having enough time, right? Of course I struggled with time in the sense that I have to still be a physician, still be a mom, still be a wife, still be a friend. So I'm used to always showing up for other people, and I doubt that I always doubt that I can still show up for clients as well. So it's like another thing added to my stack of to-do list. So not having enough time. And like I said, being a Black female, in a world where, at least when I look around, I feel like everybody else succeeding is a white female or male. So I always have the doubt that, coming in as a foreigner, coming in as a female, as a Black, that you're not going to be able to fit in and no one is even going to listen to you. So those are some of that's one of the ways it looks like. And another thing is, like I said, just not being good enough, in the sense that this is all my life. All I did was go through medical school and get told what to do and do it that way. And now having to suddenly help people figure out what's going on in their brain and help them identify it as a thought error and switch it and get what they want, especially when I'm still walking that journey myself. It always comes out as, you're not going to be able to do this. That's the end of the day. That's the doubt. You're not good enough for this.
So what does life look like for you, for that future Engee? What does life look like for you when you have arrived? What does it look like? Tell me about that.
Okay, so that Engee is actually not too far from this Engee. I will say that now that I started coaching. So she is fearless. She shows up. So it's not a question of not having enough time. She knows how to manage her time, and she is there as a mom, she's there as a wife, she's there as a physician, she's still there very much as a master coach. So she is showing up, she's living that life that she's helping other people live. She's created that right boundary. She's figured out, time management. She's put herself first all the time. Really, that's what it is. She's put herself all the time first, and so she's able to help every other person that she's meant to help.
I love that. What does she have to say about being a Black woman who is an immigrant? Like, what does she have to say about that part of your story? How does she view that?
It's an advantage. It's a huge advantage.
Yeah. So how
you have a strong story. You have a strong story that several people can relate to. And even those that can't relate to it, you're able to help them see that story. And a lot of people will be able to use that story to also empower themselves. So yes, it's a huge advantage.
I love that. Oh, it gives me goosebumps listening to you talking like this. But you should go back and you should listen to this later, like just this last bit, because you said some really powerful things. And I bet you, like, if you wrote those out and you looked at them every day, you put them on the home screen of your phone, you stuck them. I have all kinds of, like, this is literally what my office looks like. I've got all these stickies of stuff that, when I really find myself getting into that inner coach that we're talking about, right? But like, I just want to reflect back to you what I heard you say. You're going to be a woman who shows up. She shows up for herself first and foremost. She chooses everything that she does in her life, everything she does with her time. She's present. She's mastering her craft. She's an example. She sets boundaries. She manages her time. She is strong. She is using her story to her advantage. She's empowering others with her story. Isn't that amazing? Like, that's just freaking amazing. And this is all born from this place of self-doubt, right? But when I love the exercise, so writing the letter from our future self to ourself now, whenever, it's not that we need to know the how, you guys. It's we need to know that we can. That's what we need to know, right? If we have the belief, it's as good as done, because we're just going to pivot and turn and figure out the way. The steps there that's not what it's about. It's about the growth journey and where we wind up at the end. So anyway, we have been going on for a while here, so I'm being mindful of time. I thank you to everybody who spent their Saturday afternoon with us. And I really thank you guys all for the comments. We will definitely go back and revisit those. And Engee, you should definitely post a link to your talk on fear of failure as well, because that totally relates to all of this too.
Sure.
So do you have any finishing comments? Like, do you want to share what it was like to kind of just dive into that future self exercise for you?
Yes, actually, I wanted to say something because I didn't see this coming. That really got me very emotional because even though, like I said, before we started, even though we talk about self-doubt, even though we coach ourselves, we're not free from it, irrespective of what level we find ourselves in. Even knowing, identifying it, the truth is it doesn't go away. It just keeps coming. So just doing that exercise, I actually realized, and like you said, I have in my bedroom, I have my vision board that has a lot of these things that I've written down for myself, because I have to constantly remind myself when this doubt comes up that, it's all in my head, that this is what my inner coach has told me is really what I believe. And that is, like I said, I'm enough. I can do all this. I know that I'm actually doing it already. And so it was really emotional for me. And I'm glad you made us do it, because I feel like everyone that is watching or is going to watch this really needs to listen to Anna's questions and ask yourself those questions as well. It's one thing to hear it, it's another to actually really do it for yourself. And doing it now, if you guys didn't notice, I'm really, really emotional because it's emotional, but at the same time was really empowering, just having all that come out. And that's really how I feel inside, that, like I said, this is my story. This is who I am. This is a journey that I'm so glad I'm in. And, this is a life that I'm so glad that I'm living. And this is a life I want everybody to be glad that they are living. I want you to be glad you're living your life the way you want it. So do that exercise. And even though I can't see all the comments, it's just watching you and all your expression as you're reading it. I just wanted to say thank you, everybody that tuned in. Thank you for the comments. I'll definitely go back and look at them. Thank you so much. This was really nice, Anna. We should do this again.
Yeah, for sure we will. Yeah, you got me thinking as you were saying that yes, actually doing it, doing the exercise is so powerful. So I do strongly encourage everybody here to do this. But the other thing is it's beautiful to think about it like this. We're accessing our future version of ourselves to give us advice on how to get through what we're going through now. But everything we're doing right now, it's a gift to our future self, who's going to be the one who's going to enjoy the fruits of our labor, right? So it's this beautiful, it's very meta, I know, but it's this beautiful concept of like we can access our future self to guide us, but then we're paving the way to become that person that we want to be. It's so cool. Okay, Engee, before we wrap up, tell everybody how they can reach you.
Oh, definitely. I have a Facebook page, Dr. Ibe, IBE. And it's the
Not
same thing with
eBay,
my
like eBay.
no, it's like IBE. Yeah, I tend to respond to messages there really quickly. And clearly, Instagram as well is Dr. Engee, eBay, and then LinkedIn as well. It's the same page.
Perfect.
And I'm happy to post it on the comments.
Awesome. Yes, please do. Well, thank you to all of you guys for being here. I have loved doing this with you, Engee, and
Thank
all of
you.
you guys have been wonderful. And so, yeah, I'll go back through, and if there's any questions or anything, I'll make sure to comment on them. Engee will share some of her stuff.
Yeah.
Welcome everybody who's a physician into my Facebook group, but please do feel free to follow me on my main page. If you're not a physician, I always post lots of content there too. Okay, Engee, take care. Mwah, thank you.
Bye, Anna. Bye. Take care.